It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That's brand new stuff from a brand new band called the Resurrection Kings. That one is called Had Enough, and a guy who's playing I never have had enough of. It's Craig Goldy. Craig, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Chris. That's a nice introduction. I appreciate that.
Well, dude, it's real easy to give a nice introduction when you have a history like yours. And for me, as both I was an early 80s kid that had both Jafria records and obviously followed you through the Dio times. It's easy to appreciate what you've done.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That does mean a lot to me because I'm a fan. That's how everybody starts out as a fan, and then eventually they become a musician, and then they either stay a musician and end up as a rock star, or they start off as a fan and become a rock star. And I'm just a fan, and so when I hear things like that, it means a lot to me because I've worked really hard to get where I am at, and this music, the music that I'm a part of, I'm very proud to have been a part of the Dio history and the music that we made together, and the Jafria stuff, and David Lee Roth, and all the stuff that I've done. I'm very fortunate, and so for you to say that, I really do appreciate that.
Very cool. Well, Craig, the past stuff is fine, and we could talk about that all you want to, but I figure we start with at least start with the current stuff, with what's going on today, because you have this exciting new project out there called the Resurrection Kings. Anybody that's been a fan of yours will definitely dig it, but at the same time, it's got a fresh, I'll call it a fresh face on it, even though it's a collection of guys that have been in the business before.
Well, thank you for saying that. That was exactly what I was hoping it would turn out to be like, because there are a lot of famous guys from the '80s putting projects together and doing recordings and stuff, and some of them are outstanding, and some of them are the same old, and we were hoping that this would be kind of a fresh, sounding record. And Alessandro Del Vecchio, the producer, he also wrote a major portion of that album.
Sure.
And him and I co-wrote a couple of songs together, and one of the songs that I'm really quite proud of is a song that me and Chaz wrote together, was Living Out Loud.
Okay.
And I never really got a chance to put the mixture that I love so much together into one particular sound. I kind of touched on it on my first solo record called Hidden in Plain Sight, but I like the mixed, I like Whitesnake, Crying in the Rain,
mm-hmm.
and Still of the Night, and I like, everything that Deep Purple has ever done, and I love Pink Floyd, and I love Genesis, and I love Journey, and I love Foreigner, but none of them have really, and Van Halen, there are certain guitar things that, John Sykes did was nasty and sexy, that Ritchie never did. And there's certain things that Ritchie does that, John Sykes never did, or
Sure.
Van Halen never did. There's certain elements to Genesis and Journey and Foreigner that heavy metal bands have never done, and vice versa. So I got a chance to kind of mix those together, get a little bit of toughness and some darkness and some sexiness and nasty and some some Blackmore type stuff and Deep Purple type stuff and Rainbow type stuff. And so it was really nice to be able to do that. But a new mixture of already existing entities does not constitute uniqueness. It was just my first time to be able to put into the songs that we create together and record together, utilizing all of the elements of music that I loved and influenced me.
Sure.
But doing it in such a way that was not just a rehash of the same old thing.
Sure. Now, from what I read online, Craig, this was kind of put together as a project by Frontiers, and that makes sense with the way things work today. But when they do that, and this is a piece I just don't really fully understand, when they do that, do they have the players in mind, or do they reach out to you specifically and say, well, we want to do this project, reach out to your friends in the business and put together what you think will work?
Well, I'm not quite sure how it works for all the other projects, but just speaking for myself, this thing just kind of snowballed. Okay. I got an email from the president of the record label, Serafino, asking me basically that, like, would you be interested in doing a project with some other guys that made name for themselves in the 80s, doing an album, kind of steering towards the Whitesnake, Deep Purple, Rainbow type sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absolutely flabbergasted. I was sure, yeah, I'd love to do it. At the time, they didn't really have the lineup totally set.
Okay.
But as the lineup started to come into focus, they started dropping out.
Okay.
And to the naked eye, it would look like, well, this project is just falling apart at the seams. But in all reality, it was becoming stronger and more powerful. The singer that they had in mind sang and played bass. So when he dropped out, we had to get a singer and a bass player.
Sure.
So the first thing I thought of was Chaz West, because they were also saying, if you got any songs, submit them, and if we like them, we'll put them on the record. So I had already submitted the song Living Out Loud that Chaz and I had wrote together. So it made perfect sense that if Chaz was available, it'd be even better for him to sing the song that we wrote together
Sure.
and recorded together already. So he happened to be available, and then we needed a bass player. So I've always wanted to be in a band with Sean McNabb.
Sure.
I remember seeing Sean and Chaz perform together one night, and then I sat in with them, and at that time we were going, wow, we should do something together. And little by little, things kind of, other offers came in, and touring schedules got in the way, and certain conflicts, and so it kind of, got put on hold, and now here we are.
Sure.
Then the drummer they had in mind, fell through, and so me and Vinny had stayed friends from the Dio days, and him and I were doing a recording session together at the time that the drummer had fallen through. And I asked Vinny, would you be interested in doing this? And he heard some of the songs. He goes, yeah, I'd love to. And so what looked like to the naked eye, this project was falling apart at the seams, was actually becoming stronger and more powerful than it ever would have been had we, kept the original lineup.
Sure.
So and it just started to snowball from there.
Right. And one thing that's interesting is that there's a lot of paths crossing, with the band members. You and Vinny have obviously played in a band together before with Dio, and Vinny and Chaz put out a record under the name Three-Legged Dog, which to me is one of my favorite records of all time. So they've worked together as well. So it's not like you guys were total strangers by any stretch of the imagination.
That's correct. A good call. I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, we all, fortunately for me, I had performed with each one of them.
Okay.
And yes, Vinny and I like that record too. I thought that was a great record, Three-Legged Dog.
Sure.
And so on paper we knew it would work, because we all had worked together at some point and either written and recorded and performed or performed together at one point. And the crucial point about it all is that we all were friends and we all liked each other.
Sure.
That helps. And we all had respect for each other's gift and talent. And so that really created a special chemistry as well.
Sure. Now with Resurrection Kings, with the record coming out, and everybody will ask about touring. I have to imagine that it's a touring nightmare between your obligations, Vinny's obligations, Sean between music and acting. You guys all have things going on. How difficult will it be to put together, a month or so to go out and play gigs?
Yeah, well, right now we're in negotiations with managers and agents to do a concert, to do a tour to promote the record. Because we do, we all were so impressed with how it ended up and how it came out that we did want to do more. And we do want to do another album, and we would like to tour in support of this. And there are some scheduling things going on. And unfortunately, mainly, a lot of us were paid as sidemen back in the 80s.
Right.
When we made it for ourselves. So we didn't really get a big piece of the pie. So none of us were millionaires. If I had a dime for every album I wrote and recorded on, I'd be a multimillionaire right now. But that's not the case. But luckily, the global marketplace has once again smiled upon the 80s-based music again, and hopefully we'll be able to get out there and do some stuff. But most of us have to do like 10 different projects at once in order to make the equivalency of what we used to make in one as a sideman. So it's not like we don't have scruples and we don't really care.
Right.
It's just that, we're musicians and we're good at what we do, and we'd like to make a living at what we're good at. And so that often tends to make us have to almost overwork and overschedule ourselves in order to, just stay afloat. So hopefully things will turn around now that the global marketplace has smiled upon this music again.
Sure. Now, since you brought that up, let's go there a little bit. I did see, and I was quite excited to see this, that you and David Glenn Isley played a Giuffria reunion sort of thing last fall, and that seems to have blossomed into an actual project with you and David doing music together again. Talk a little bit about that, and how in the world did you get David off the couch?
That's funny because he attributes that whole thing to me getting him out of his cave.
Sure.
Well, me and Dave always stayed friends from the Giuffria days, and I think he's one of the best singers on the planet. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's one of the most underrated singers, I think, and I'm probably one of the most underrated guitarists. So together, we make quite a pair. So, if you go back on that first Giuffria record, if the people who love rock and hard rock and heavy metal can get past the two ballads that are on that song and a stupid song called Dance, there's songs like Don't Tear Me Down and Turn Me On and Trouble Again, where there's some real, those are rock songs, and Dave does some stuff on there that would rival any heavy metal singer, dead or alive.
Right. And
he sang on a portion of my first solo record. There's a song called Over and Over, where it's him singing on a heavy metal song, and he sounds outstanding on it. He's got a really, really strong voice, and so unfortunately, Giuffria came out at the same time where all the payola and corruption behind the scenes of the music industry had been exposed, and so we just got caught in the mix. It wasn't us doing any kind of, we weren't pulling any shenanigans or anything, but
right.
There was a lot of corruption behind closed doors, and we just happened to be one of the bands that got hurt by it. But luckily for me at the time, me and Ronnie had stayed friends since the days I was doing demos with Giuffria, with Rough Cut, while I was in Giuffria, and he flew me in to do the hearing aid thing for the We're Stars, and Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge had just left Ozzy, so they were getting ready to put a band together. So I got a chance to join a band with Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge,
wow.
And we were in a band together for about a year and a half, doing stuff more along the lines of Ozzy and Deep Purple kind of stuff mixed together, and then that's when I got the call to join Dio. So it all worked out. But I don't think the world really got a chance to really hear what Dave Isley could really do. So last year, I was approached by a San Diego promoter who asked me to do a past, present, and future concert. So I got together all the guys that I did, the local guys that I had a band with here in San Diego, some of the Dio Disciples guys, some of the Black Knights Rising guys, and then the band that I have together that we're getting ready to put an album out this year, and asked Dave if he would do it. And it took a little while to convince him, but he did, and it was me, Krieger, and Dave doing some Giuffria songs. And apparently one of the guys in the audience had flown from London to see that, and then he was the one that put together us coming out there for Nottingham, which is the thing you were talking about.
Sure. And
so then from there, it was like Frontiers was like, hey, you guys should do another album in the vein of Giuffria. So we got that going on. So I'm excited about that because I think the world missed Mr. David Glenn Isley. I know I certainly did.
Sure. And it's funny because an album that I trumpet all the time and everybody looks at me and goes, who? Is that Dirty White Boy record that he did. That record was so filthy nasty riff-wise, as well as his vocals were incredible.
Yeah, he's. I know that's another album that just kind of got swept under the carpet, unfortunately. Yeah, that was a great band.
Sure. Definitely good stuff, man. So when is that project looking to be? End of the year or
Well, actually, they're hoping to have it in the first quarter of the year. They're hoping for April.
Okay.
So we're going to do our best to get it done by April.
Very cool, man. But for now, it's definitely Resurrection Kings, and with this band, certainly Vinny Appice, no stranger to playing and being out there, and obviously has been in one of the very, very biggest bands ever on the planet. Does he? And I know Vinny personally, and he's always been super nice to me, and I've never heard anything bad about him. I'm just curious, as somebody that's known him for 40 years at this point, is he still the same guy he was when he wasn't the drummer from Black Sabbath?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we all kind of change and stuff, but basically, yes. He's always been real funny, down to earth. You'd never know he was the drummer from Black Sabbath unless you were a Black Sabbath fan kind of guy.
Okay.
And he's a lot. He's the kind of guy that if you met him, you'd like what he does even more. Because there was the engineer that worked on a lot of the Dio records that like Magica, Master of the Moon, and some of the other albums. Killing the Dragon. That's what he said. He goes. It's not good sometimes to meet your heroes, but when you do, if Ronnie's the kind of guy that if you meet him, you just like his music even more. And Vinny's the same type of guy. I mean, if you meet him, you just like what he does even more. He's not one of those guys where, oh man, I was really looking forward to meeting Vinny, and God, what a jerk,
Right.
He's just a good guy deep down inside, and if anything, he's become more, more laid back and more funny, and he hasn't changed, but he has. He's just become more of himself.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Sure. Excellent, man. Well, Craig, the new record is called Resurrection Kings. That's the name of the record. That's the name of the project. That's the name of the band. Tell people where they can find out more about Resurrection Kings online and purchase the record and that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, there is a Facebook page, Resurrection Kings, and I believe it is available on Amazon and iTunes. Okay. And definitely check out the song "Living Out Loud."
All right.
"Living Out Loud" and "Falling for You." "Living Out Loud," I think, is really like the signature. That's supposed to be really the signature sound of the album.
Okay.
And because it's got a little mixture of everything, a little bit of tough, a little bit of nasty guitar, a little bit of Deep Purple type stuff. There's a little bit of darkness, a little bit of toughness. There's almost a little bit of Zeppelin-y stuff. There's a little bit of everything in there.
Sure.
And it's not, like I said, a new mixture of already existing entities that just doesn't constitute uniqueness. It's just influenced by all my favorite elements of all my favorite bands mixed into one on this record, and especially on that song and "Falling for You." I think people will be surprised, I think, by those two songs especially. And then the rest of the record, "Silent Wonder," that we wrote with Alessandro, and like you just said, you just played "Had Enough."
Mm-hmm.
That was actually rewritten. That was one of those things where the demo came in, and I said, well, is it okay if I rewrite some of this? And Alessandro goes, yeah, go for it. So we ended up nicknaming it Goldyizing. So we Goldyized a lot of these songs that I didn't write. And I felt, I was really humbled and honored by that, that he just said, yeah, go for it, And then I sent him an MP3 of a sample of what I'd like to do with the song, and he goes, right on, go for it,
Nice.
He was just an absolute dream to work with. Everybody was just a dream to work with. But those... "Living Out Loud" really is the signature song, I think.
All right, well then let's wrap it up with that one. This is Resurrection Kings. This is "Living Out Loud." It is your classic metal show.